Welcome to the orientation of the Tree of Life Shtender by David Moss and Noah Greenberg. To be presented by Rabbi Matthew Berkowitz and recorded by Adir Berkowitz. Okay, before we jump into the different components of the Shtender, I'd like to give some background on the artists, both David Moss and Noah Greenberg, and a little background to the project. So let me first begin with David Moss. David Moss is one of the most creative Judaic artists in the world today. He was born in 1946 in Dayton, Ohio, and from 1946 to 1975, David will tell you that he was under the creative tutelage of his very creative father, Jack Moss. David is a graduate of St. John's College of Annapolis and Santa Fe. He studied at the Jewish Theological Seminary and Hebrew University. He entered the rabbinical school track at Hebrew University, not to become a rabbi, but to become fluent in Jewish text. David is single-handedly responsible for reviving the art of ketubah illumination. In 1980, he was commissioned by the Levy family to create the Moss Haggadah. Right around that same time, David dreamt up the idea of the Tree of Life Shtender. The difficulty with the dream that he had for the Shtender was that David had never worked in three dimensions like this. And so David really needed to find a chavruta, a partner as it was. And so David turned to Noah Greenberg, a wonderful artist that he knew from his days in Berkeley, California. Noah Greenberg grew up in Berkeley. He was born in the 50s in Berkeley, and in 1980 he and his wife Donna made Aliyah. They opened a studio in Sfat for the fabrication of synagogue furniture and ritual items. And it was right around that same time that David approached Noah about this idea of the Tree of Life Shtender. As I begin the presentation, I often like to ask people what a Shtender is and where it is that they see a Shtender. So for instance, right, we typically see a Shtender in a yeshiva, or it could be in a traditional synagogue, what we call a shtibel, like the synagogue at your street corner. People daven from a Shtender, they pray from a Shtender. You often find people studying from Shtenders, rocking back and forth on the Shtenders. So in David and Noah's minds, Shtender is the intellectual and spiritual heart of the Jewish people. Right? We study from it, we pray from it. They wanted to add a whole other dimension, and that is the dimension of the practical mitzvot. Right? They wanted the Shtender to be woven into the texture of daily life, of the annual life of the Jewish calendar. And they did that by creating a very, very modest-looking piece on the outside. And in it, we have every single ritual item that one could possibly need over the course of the Jewish year. So without further ado, let's jump into the Shtender itself. The Tree of Life Shtender is woven into what we call Shivat HaMinim, the 7 species of the land of Israel. Wheat, barley, dates, pomegranates, figs, olives, etc. All of the pieces are woven, or I should say most of the pieces are woven into those Shivat HaMinim, those 7 species. And we'll see additional flora as we go along. On the outside of the Shtender, you have the rimon, or the pomegranate tree. Why the pomegranate tree? Right? If you take a look, you'll see the fruit of the pomegranate. Right? We have the pomegranate tree on both sides of the Shtender. And there's a wonderful rabbinic teaching that the seeds of the pomegranate number 613, right? Equal to the mitzvot, the commandments that we have in the tradition. The Shtender itself is divided into 3 compartments. Objects that we need on a daily basis are found in the top compartment. Objects that we need on a weekly basis, right? Everything we need for Shabbat, which is found in the front compartment of the Shtender. Right? And then everything that we need over the course of the Jewish year found on either side of the Shtender. So let's begin with objects that we need on a daily basis. I often like to ask people, right, what is it that we do daily as Jews? So, right, wearing tefillin, right, this is the first of its kind. Right? Typically, we carry our tefillin in a sack. This is a tefillin box. Carved into the outside of the tefillin box is the tapuach, or the apple tree. Why the apple tree? David and Noah were thinking of the acronym of Pardes. Right? Pardes means orchard, but Pardes stands for the 4 levels of Torah interpretation: Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. The literal interpretation, the hint, the homiletical interpretation, and finally, the secretive or mystical interpretation. Right? This is the one piece that is very explicitly connected to Torah, because remember, in the boxes of tefillin, right, the batim, we have the parshiot of the tefillin. We have the actual parchments. There's a sod, or secret, to opening this box. You press on the leaf in the corner, the box opens, and the way the box is designed so that the shel rosh fits in this compartment and shel yad in this compartment. Right? So that when you open the box, you immediately see the yad tefillin, take it out, and it's taken out in its proper order. Right? The box closes. Right? We're going to place each of the objects on the table just fine. The next mitzvah that we should be doing on a daily basis is that of tzedakah. Right. Here we have our tzedakah box, but what you need to know about the tzedakah box that Noah and David created is that it doubles as another ritual item. Right? The pushka in the center pops out like so. Right? There we have the actual tzedakah box, and here we're left with a yahrzeit candle holder. If you look closely at the iconography outside of the yahrzeit candle holder, right, you'll notice that there's a very large leaf there. Right? Typically, Jews in North America look at it and they say it's a maple leaf. Right? But think the land of Israel, you've got a fig leaf and the fruit of the fig. Right? What's the connection amongst the tzedakah box, the yahrzeit candle, and the fig leaf? The connection is, there's a teaching in Mishlei, tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that charity or righteousness saves from death. When did death enter the world? Right? Death enters the world when Adam and Eve clothe themselves in the fig leaves. Right? Very, very beautiful piece. The next item that we use on a daily basis is the siddur that's found in the top part of the Shtender. So we've got our Shtender siddur. Right? This is a very, very special siddur in the sense that it only contains one of the 3 services. Right? This is a siddur that just contains the mincha or afternoon service. In the Torah, the mincha offering in the temple is described as solet bilula b'shemen, wheat mixed with olive oil. So you have the olive branch, the wheat plant, and then as you look at the siddur, what you notice immediately is that there are only a couple of lines on each page. Why a couple of lines? Right? Noah and David wanted to slow us down when we daven. They feel that in general we pray too quickly. Right? So by printing just a few lines on each page, right, we're forced to slow our davening down and to raise our kavanah, our inner intent. Right? So those are the objects that we need on a daily basis in the tradition. Obviously, there's space for talit. Let's turn to the objects that we need on a weekly basis, right? Those objects that we need for Shabbat. We begin opening the Shabbat compartment, and out of that compartment comes the Shabbat candelabrum. Right, this is our menorah, as opposed to a Chanukiah that's lit on Hanukkah. Right, this particular menorah has space to light 7 candles. Why 7? Right, 7 is a Kabbalistic tradition to light for each of the days of the week. Right, we know well that it's a commandment to light at a minimum 2, right, for Shamor and Zachor, to remember and to observe the Sabbath day, but most families have the tradition of lighting for each of the children in the family. Carved into the candelabrum is the almond tree, or shkediyah. Why the shkediyah? Because the menorah that's described in Torah is described as being meshukadim, or literally decorated. That's the menorah that stood in the Beit HaMikdash in the temple, and even though it's translated simply as decorated, we know that the root of that Hebrew word is shaked or shkediyah, the almond tree. Rashi tells us that the lights